Hey, what's up guys? I'm Steve Wells and today I'm wearing my Time to Fly hat because we are going to be talking about the brand new Hoka One One Carbon X2. So this shoe is one of Hoka's carbon fiber plate racing shoes. It has a little bit more cushion than the Rocket X. It's meant a little bit more for road marathons to ultras. To get started off, I haven't run a ton in this shoe because it's being lent to me. However, even if I had it for longer, I don't think I could have done more miles in it than I did, which I'll explain a little bit later. This one here is a 12. I went up a half size from my normal 11 and a half. Lengthwise seems about right. If you're interested in all the specs on this shoe, I'll be sure to have them down in the description so you can check them out down there. But we'll talk about the weight and my size. So this is 10.1 ounces. So not crazy heavy, not crazy light, but I feel like heavier than I would expect it to be. If we compare it to something like the Rincon, that is 8.9 ounces. So the Carbon X is going to be a full ounce heavier than the Rincon. And then if we compare it to the Clifton is 10.5, so only 0.4 ounces heavier than the Carbon X. Obviously those are all going to be very different shoes, but purely going based off of weight, this shoe is going to be more similar to the Clifton than something like the Rincon. Before we get started, I do have a Patreon account now. Link will be down in the description. Be sure to head down there if you want to help out the channel, help me keep doing what I'm doing. I've been trying to get out early access to videos on there every week, and there will be some other stuff coming in the future as well. But let's get into some pros about the Carbon X2. So my first pro is the transition as you're going kind of heel to toe. Especially for such a stiff shoe, it does transition fairly well with that kind of meta rocker that they've got going on in this shoe. And that rocker is going to be another pro for me. Makes it so you're able to run in a shoe this stiff. It's going to be less than some other shoes, going to be less than like the Endorphin Shift, like the Asics Glide Ride, going to be more similar rocker wise to something like the Clifton. Another pro is going to be the density of foam on this one. Some of the other shoes, the Rocket X, the Carbon X1, I felt like have just been too squishy for a race shoe like this, and in turn haven't been as responsive as I would like them to be. But this one was headed in the right direction, not totally there in my opinion, but it is going to feel more responsive with the foam that they have in this one than some of those other shoes. My next pro-ish is the heel counter here. I really don't care one way or another as long as it doesn't get in my way. There are some from other companies like Nike and New Balance that are doing something similar to this that I like better than what Hoka's been doing, but I think that this one is definitely better than what they have on something like the Clifton. It's going to be a little bit wider, kind of less pointy on the Carbon X, and doesn't come up quite as high. I think that's the biggest thing, because I was having problems with the Clifton kind of pushing up and poking into my Achilles, and I wasn't having anything like that with these. And my last pro is the price at $180. It's by no means a cheap shoe, but for a carbon fiber plate racing shoe, it's going to be one of the better prices out there. I think the only other one that is $180 is the Rocket X. Maybe I'm wrong on that. So let's talk about some cons with this shoe. My first con is the volume in it. Not necessarily the volume in like the midfoot, but the volume in the toe box, which is kind of a weird thing to talk about. But this is a problem that I had with the Carbon X1. something that carried over into this shoe, unfortunately. There's just so much room top to bottom in the toe box that I always end up with a bunch of fabric bunching up, and there's just way too much room out there. So much room that I don't think anyone would fill up with their toes unless they're like that thick. Another con is with the stiffness and design of this shoe. It really does kind of force you to run heel to toe. I normally land more midfoot whenever I'm running. However, in this shoe, it doesn't really give you much of a choice. This shoe also doesn't feel as light as some of its competitors. Didn't feel light when I was running in it, and that's because it's really not, but you really do start to notice it after a little while. Another con is the liners that are in this shoe. They're super thin, they're glued in, they had been torn out by someone before I got these, and so they just never quite go in back in right after that. I ended up actually taking them out and using a different insert in them for other reasons, but I wish we had seen something more like what we saw in the Rocket X in this shoe. So like I said, I actually ended up wearing a different insert in this shoe, which I really didn't want to do. However, when I put this shoe on and stand up, my arch just spills right out over the medial edge, and the way that it kind of comes up around your foot, my foot goes right up and over that, and it really digs into the bottom of my foot and is pretty much immediately super uncomfortable. I was also really having problems with the shape of this shoe. The shape of this shoe just does not work with my foot at all. So the shoe kind of curves back around, so that's why I kind of dump over the medial edge here. And on the lateral side of my foot through like my midfoot, I was having some pretty serious problems with it being super tight over there. Now, I have a fairly straight foot. Katie has very different feet than I do, and she was actually having the exact same problem in this shoe. So I got about 2 miles out when I was running in this shoe, and it was so tight over here and really hurting my foot that I had to turn around and come back right away because I was worried about hurting my feet. And later that night, like 12 hours later, my feet were actually still hurting from that run. That's not to say that's necessarily something that's going to happen to you. However, if you have feet like mine, it's definitely something to keep in mind because I could not have kept running in these shoes. So will I be going out and buying myself a pair of these? You probably already know. No. It's not necessarily a bad shoe. However, the way that it works with my foot, it just really doesn't work. If I ran more miles in these, I'm pretty sure that I would end up injuring myself just because it completely doesn't fit my feet. There are also shoes that are on the market right now for just a few dollars more that are, in my opinion, a little bit better. But as always, I just recommend trying on the shoe before you buy it, or buying it from somewhere with a good return policy, so that you don't end up spending all of your money on a shoe that ends up hurting your feet. I was really excited about this shoe. I really wanted it to work out. However, it just was not working for me. I hope I don't seem too overly critical in this video. However, I'm here to give you guys honest feedback on these shoes, and to be totally honest, I was not having a great time running in these. But I hope this video has been helpful. If it was, be sure to like and subscribe down below. Check out my Patreon link down there. Leave any questions you've got for me in the comments, and I will talk to you guys next week.